This is Zen'n'ish.
Welcome to Zen'n'ish podcast, where we explore transformative conversations about growth, self-discovery, and well-being. Today, we're joined by Natasha Riley, a licensed sex therapist, clinical sexologist, and pleasure strategist, to discuss how we can reconnect to pleasure as a daily practice, especially for high-achieving Black women. Natasha, we're so glad to have you with us today. Please share a little about yourself, your journey, and what inspires your work around pleasure and self-care.
Oh, so many questions at one time. Let's see, where do we start? I love what I do. I got started as a sex therapist. I tell people all the time, watching the things that I wasn't supposed to be watching when I was younger. So I was watching Real Sex and Taxi Cab Confessions and Dr. Ruth, and something in my little mind was saying, I could do that. I didn't even know what that was, but
Right.
I was like, I could do that. And so in high school, I took a psychology and sociology class, and I really liked the psychology part. Take or leave sociology. It's not my favorite. And that started my journey to becoming a therapist. So for the last almost 20 years, life has always been about therapy. I'm a therapist. I do therapy. I'm a sex therapist. And I've recently started to rebuild a relationship with myself of who I am outside of that, which has been the pleasure part, figuring out what it is that I like and recognizing, though I'm very good at this and I'm good at what I do, there's so much more to me, which is kind of how I help my clients. A lot of my clients, so in my private practice, I see they're usually coming on like their 40th, 50th birthday. And I actually started a job working at a college campus. So I do counseling in the college campus. So I get to see the babies at the beginning, and I get to see the women at the end. And a lot of it is I've gone out here and I've done all these things. I've checked all these boxes. I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. Why does life suck? Like, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. My kids are making me angry. I'm not having sex. A lot of them are going through menopause. So, like, it's woe is me. And so we have to start from the root of, well, who are you? What do you want? And get them reconnected to themselves.
Yes. So in talking a little more about that, I know many women associate pleasure solely with intimacy in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you define pleasure more broadly, and why is it a non-negotiable in our daily lives?
So pleasure really just is satisfaction. It's enjoyment. And it's a non-negotiable because how are you going to go out here and do life and continue to have the energy and to have the will and motivation to do life if there aren't parts of it that are satisfying to you, that get you excited, that give you the belly aching laughs, or just the comfort of being around people that allow you, whether it's your full self right now or learning to be your full self, you are deserving of that. And I feel as Black women, that's never the message that is spoken to us. That's never what we're seeing. And so at some point, someone has to do something different. And so I feel like we just gonna have to do something different. We're gonna have to choose ourselves. We're gonna have to choose pleasure. We're gonna have to make decisions that lead to us feeling good, not always someone else.
Yes, definitely. I know in my work with, clients in sex therapy, there's a large piece, it always feels like in the very beginning of the psychoeducation of pleasure and intimacy is not equivalent to sex or the sexual
Absolutely.
act. And
Absolutely.
even though they're like, yeah, I got it, I got it, I got it. When you hear the conversation, you're like, no, no, you don't quite have it
Mm-hmm.
yet. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
more. So yes, that's a very important point that you made. Um, why do you think there's so many women, particularly Black women, who struggle to prioritize their own pleasure?
Well, because that's completely foreign. That is not something we've ever been allowed to do. And if we look at the lineage of it, if we look at the epigenetics of it, that is not something that anyone is able to show us how to do because it's not something that our ancestors had, right? It was, we are about survival mode. If we ever were to do anything that was about our pleasure, it could lead in us dying. And so recognizing that we're not that far removed from that, and who was going to teach us that? Because we've been taught survival. So at some point, someone in the line has to say, okay, I get why we do this. And I get that there is still some of that out here, but we don't have to be in survival mode anymore. Like we can live and we can thrive, and everybody's going to do it different. But someone has to say, we're not doing this no more. We can't.
Mhm. Absolutely. I feel like over the years, over the generations, something switched in our head, largely due to trauma, where our pleasure became intrinsically tied to others being okay. If everybody else is okay and everybody
Hmm.
else's needs are taken care of, then we should feel pleasured by that. Our need for self pleasure, self enjoyment diminished, and that became the goal. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the survival, right? I have to make
Yes.
sure that my family is good and tucked away and you're doing what you're supposed to do so that you're safe. I have to make sure that I go in the house and their family is okay and the master's okay and his wife is okay and you got the clothes that you need and y'all are eating. Like that literally was their day to day. I have to make sure everyone else is good. It doesn't matter if I'm sick, doesn't matter if I'm pregnant, doesn't matter if I'm grieving. I still have to get out here and do my job because if I don't do my job, they're either going to beat the mess out of me or they could kill me or they could take my children and bring my
Right.
family away. Like there's so much that was on the backs of make sure everyone else is good.
Mm-hmm.
And so that doesn't just disappear. You know, like when I'm talking to my clients, I tell them exactly where it comes from. Like, I get it. I'm not faulting you. I know where the need to show up for everybody else comes from. But at some point, I'm assuming because you're here, you want to do something different. But if you don't want to do anything different, that's okay. You just have to be okay with the way things are, and you have to stop complaining about it because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to do anything different. Is it scary? Yes, because you people get upset with you, you act indifferent, you lose friends, you lose connections with family, sometimes you lose partners, you quit in jobs because now we're following the pleasure, we're following the satisfaction. The thing is, everyone benefits from that.
Right.
Everyone benefits from that. I saw it on my own. I had a job. I was angry. I was sitting in traffic for an hour and a half, and I would get home and I would just be going off. Didn't matter. I was looking for things to go off on people. And my kids are like, "You're so mean. You're so angry." Everyone said it. Like you could feel everybody's like joy shut down when I walked through the house. And I was like, I don't want to be the angry person anymore, which is what led to me quitting my last job. And I was like, oh, everyone's happier. I started doing dance classes, and my partner, he's like, no, you make sure you go. Every Wednesday, you're going. You're so much happier. Like, I see that you like it.
Yeah.
And that's where it clicked. I was like, okay. So when I make sure that I'm good, I have the capacity. I have my cup runneth over and I'm able to provide for y'all and
Yeah.
it not burn me out or make me feel resentful. So coming from that angle, like you can't give to anybody without giving to yourself because it's about burning out. You will burn out. It's not about, oh, if I burn out. No, you're going to. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fact.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about addressing barriers and myths.
Hmm.
Um, so pleasure can often feel scary to embrace, right? And we just
Yes.
talked about some of the many reasons why that might be so. Why do you think that is? And how can women begin to shift that mindset?
Hmm. Pleasure is scary because it requires you to do something that is opposite of the norm. It requires you to be selfish, and selfish has such a negative connotation on it.
Hmm.
And so it's like, okay, well, if I choose me, then basically everybody else is doomed. That's that's what it sounds like in our head.
Yeah.
It's not a safe thing to do, but it doesn't have to be a massive change. For me, my biggest change was I'm gonna change the curtains in my room. I'm gonna choose something that makes me happy, that makes me feel good. I like the way the sun comes through them. Okay, well, what else can I do? Okay, I like to sit outside in the sun. I'm gonna do that more. I'm gonna make sure I do that every day. I like this particular food. I'm gonna eat it at least once a week. It's little things, I'm gonna buy more upscale candles opposed to these regular candles. Just it's legit little things that I do to enhance my senses
Hmm.
every single day that leads to me wanting to do more because I like the way I feel. So people always think I need to go out here and pay for these $100 massages, or you could go get an $8 candle and be just
Right.
fine.
Absolutely. And it can be as different as the scent of your cleaning supplies, like
Hmm.
literally.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I'm a scent person, so I'm always sniffing and smelling, and I like texture. I like soft.
Yeah.
So I'm always buying soft pillows and soft blankets because that enhances my experience, whether I'm just watching TV or reading a book. I have this soft thing on me that allows me to be present. So
Yeah.
it's really simple. We just have to stop making it so hard.
Absolutely. And you have touched on this a bit already, but guilt comes into play a lot
Hmm.
when we're looking at this topic. And guilt is a common emotion on the journey of reclaiming pleasure. So,
Yes.
how do you coach women through those feelings?
I don't coach them through it. I tell them we're going to do it anyway. It's not any different from doing something scary, right? Like that
Yeah.
is an emotion it's going to be there because it's something you've never done before and
Right.
you have no clue what the outcome is going to be. But that shouldn't be what stops you because eventually it won't be as prominent. It probably will still be there. There are things that I do. Like if I decide I'm going to go hang out with the girls, besides going to the baseball game, my son's baseball game, there's still a little bit of that mom guilt, but it doesn't change the fact you have lots of baseball games. I
Right.
only get to hang out with the girls every once in a while because we're just busy and life is lifing. I'm going to go to your baseball game, but I'm also going to go do this for me. And the
Right.
guilt is there. It's just not as big as it used to be when I first started because I can rationalize I have to pour into my cup. I have to do this, or I'm going to be at your game looking at everyone crazy, pissed off, sitting outside because I'm not an outside. I don't know. It's just not my thing to be outside doing sports, but I'm there to support.
Yeah.
So you want me in the best spirits when I'm out there. Everybody does. So I have to pour into me to be able to do those types of things.
Yes. I remember recently, probably on a TikTok, I was watching, excuse me, but I heard someone and they were describing it like we've been talking about an empty cup. And they said, the verse says, my cup runneth over. And they
Mhm.
said, that's what you're supposed to feed and bless the rest of the world with, that run
Yes.
over. Like, but if you've got
Yes.
nothing left, what are you supposed to do?
Exactly, exactly. And I think I saw a TikTok too where the guy was talking about how he doesn't give from the run over, he gives over from the run over off of the saucer. And so no one
Oh,
ever even
wow.
like no one even touches what comes out of the cup. And I was like, "Oh, you really pouring into
Right.
yourself." And so that's what I tell people, like if you can get your cup to run over twice and give from
Mm,
what runs over off of the saucer and like you will always have the capacity. Some of my friends are like, you do so much. Like, how are you say it's nothing? I said, well, I'm doing things that I absolutely enjoy. And I also have the capacity. So
yes.
nothing is digging out of my cup. That's why I have the capacity. And so, women are always like, well, how am I supposed to do this and that and this and that? You have to sacrifice doing all the things first to get solidified in yourself, to pour
Right.
into yourself, then you'll be able to do the things that you want to do because you will have the capacity. A lot of women, especially Black women, are moving from a place of survival mode. And so you can't do everything that you're trying to do. It's just not going to work. But the minute you start incorporating activities that bring more pleasure into your life, you will find that if somebody comes to you, whether it's work, a friend, family, and they want you to do something, it's like, oh, I could do that. Like, it doesn't even, I don't even need you to do anything back for me. I
Right.
definitely have the capacity to do this for you. And I would love to do this for you because I love you and it's going to, or I like you, or like I like this job and I want to be able to put my all into it. And it doesn't bother me
Mhm.
to do that. But if you never try, you'll never know that you can get to that place where you can give without constantly needing someone to give back to you because you're getting it in other areas. You're giving it to yourself, you're getting it from people that you love. And so when you give to someone, it's not from a, oh, you better give it back or I showed up for you. It's like, no, I have it to give. I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. Yes. And understanding that sometimes the first step in all of that is learning how to say no and set
Oh
clear
gosh.
boundaries.
My favorite word, and my favorite word is no, because when you say no to something, you get to say yes to something for you.
Yes.
And it's the same opposite. When you say yes to something, you are saying no to something for you.
Yes. Very true. So, what are some practical steps women can take to reconnect with their pleasure on a daily basis? And you've talked about many of those, changing the
Mhm.
curtains, buying an upscale candle. What are some other tips that you have?
Definitely do an evaluation of the people around you because
Mhm.
everyone is not for you. When you start making this shift, which I'm sure you've seen in clients, is when you start having them feeling themselves, all of a sudden they're like, people are acting funny and they're upset with
Yes.
me. And it's like, well, we see it all over the interwebs, right? That quote that says that people know an old version of you that doesn't exist anymore
Mhm.
and they may not like this new version of you. You,
Right.
as the new version, may not like them, how they move, how they're constantly taking from your energy, and they don't have to give to you. And I tell my clients, it's not always malicious that they can't give back to you. They just may not be in that place to give back to you. And that's okay, but it doesn't change the fact that you have to have the boundaries
Yeah.
and let them do what they need to do or go dig from whoever else they're digging from, but it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be
Right.
you.
And another aspect too that I found with some of my clients, it's because the version that they're clinging to, they didn't have to give back to.
Right. Right. Because you taught them, I'll just, whatever you need, I got you. We've
Right.
been friends since second grade and I'm always going to have your back. And this new version is like, second grade, what? Like, you're not getting from this cup. Like,
Right.
no, you
Let's
gonna have
do a little
to
review.
we're gonna have
Yeah.
to do something different. And it gets lonely. The pleasure journey gets very lonely because you start pouring into yourself and you start learning things about yourself and you start questioning a lot of things that are going on. And
Mhm.
everyone is not there. Everyone doesn't want to have those conversations, and everyone does not want to be uncomfortable enough to level up. And
Yeah.
that gets very lonely,
Mhm.
especially when you are in that limbo of I don't want to be this person, but I have no clue who this person is that I'm getting ready to be. So I'm in limbo. I also kind of need to isolate myself and figure it out because I don't have the answers for when someone says what's going on. I don't know. I'm changing. I don't know what that looks like.
Right.
So that can be very heavy. It can require a lot of grief
Mhm.
because I mean, even with partners, I've changed. You're not changing, or you don't like this version of me. And I mean, it is what it is. How do we go our separate ways? So prepare for the grief. But
Mm.
on the other side, it's so good.
It is. It is. You've mentioned that the last 2 years, or in our conversation, you talked about the last 2 years have been dedicated to living in your pleasure. Could you share a story or a moment that highlights this journey for you?
Yes, a moment that is highlighted for me. So I love shoes. And when I started working from home, I didn't really buy a lot of shoes because I'm at home. I'm not going anywhere. So my friend invited me to her 40th birthday, and it was all black. So I found these black knee-high boots, and they had gold chains on them. Oh,
Okay.
I absolutely love those boots. And they came in the mail. And the Amazon truck always drops everything off right in front of the garage if the garage is open. So I'm like, whatever. I was outside. I opened them immediately and I slid my foot into them, and it was orgasmic bliss. My foot fit so perfectly. It
Oh,
like
awesome.
slid in like butter. I was like, this has to be what Cinderella felt like when the prince put the shoe on her foot. We were made for each other. And I felt like the wave in my body. I was like, oh, this is amazing. It was like the shoe was made specifically for me.
Yeah.
But had I not done work to like connect with my body and experience pleasure outside of just a sexual pleasure, I wouldn't have even noticed what my body's reaction was to things that I absolutely enjoy.
Right. Right. That shift to mindfulness and being present in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
it is magical, just like that. It really.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. And it's hard to be in the moment though, right? Because, us as therapists, we understand there's so much junk that we got in the attic that we've
Yeah.
locked up that, it's like, I ain't ready to do that. And then there's so much, oh, I got all these goals and who I want to be, but I don't know what's getting ready to come. And it's so easy to go back and forth,
Right.
and it's intentional. Right. This is being present is not something that comes naturally to people. This is what I want y'all to
Yes.
understand. Every day, I have to intentionally make myself pay attention to what's going
Hmm.
on to the here and now.
Hmm.
It's just something now that my brain does, right? Like when I'm with friends, I'm paying attention. What does it smell like in here? Oh, look at her. She looks so cute today and what she's wearing. But it's something I'm consciously doing. It isn't just oh, we've got an autopilot switch, because if I put my autopilot switch on, I'm gonna go back to being this overachiever, goal oriented, not celebrating
Yeah.
myself. I got to get to the next task type situation, because that
Right.
doesn't disappear from me. So I need y'all to understand, this will always be work. It's not
Yeah.
bad work, but it's work in itself, because that's not how we're wired.
Absolutely. And I think over time it does become easier because I spend more time being present than having to call myself back to the present
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, like you were talking about, the achieving and the next task, I think I've achieved more being present
Mm-hmm.
because I'm aware of all the things that fill me up. Like before, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the things were the check the box, like I need to do this, and I need to do that.
Yeah.
But, like I've gotten certifications in this or trained in that because I'm more aware of what brings me joy. And it just happened
Mm-hmm.
so that it came along with a certificate. But being present and mindful is definitely work, but it does become easier. And the joy will keep bringing you back. That
Yep.
that feeling will keep bringing you
Mm-hmm.
back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 Absolutely. Ooh.
um, so who benefits when women embrace the pleasure fully? Like, how does the transformation ripple out into their relationships and communities?
Oh, that's such a good question, because that was just I have these conversations with ChatGPT that get so intense and deep.
Doesn't it?
So we
I
just
thought
be
I
we
was
be
the only
going at
one.
it. Yeah, I'd just be asking it stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. I had to put my computer away because I felt like it was yelling at me.
Yeah.
But I think it's the way that I had to answer that question, it started with me, right? I recognize that pleasure work is a trail that is not necessarily made yet. So I think of it as when you go on a nature walk, there are these trails that people have walked through for so long that now you can see the trail. And the pleasure work, there isn't necessarily a trail. It's like really light and you could miss it if you're not looking hard enough. And so I recognize that I may not see all the benefit that I am putting out. I've had to reconcile with, I'm dropping nuggets because pleasure work, especially in Black women, is so new. It's brand new. So it's like dropping seeds in the ground. And so when a woman chooses her pleasure, she'll see the ripple because there will be people that say, what, like something's different about you. You're glowing, your body looks good, you're laughing more, you're happy. What is it that you did? And then she'll share whether she went to therapy or she started like her pleasure journey. And maybe they'll go out and do it, or maybe they'll just go and process the fact that how like pleasure brought all this to you, like got your skin glowing like that.
Right.
And they may sit and think on it, and they may not take action, but they'll think on it and they'll think on it. You know, this woman that has chose pleasure now interacts with children different, whether it's her daughters or her nieces. They will see what it's like for a woman to choose pleasure and to choose herself and to have boundaries, which will then give them something to be like, huh, so it's okay for me to do that.
Absolutely.
That's the chain, right? That's that generational chain, that generational curse that starts to be unlocked when the younger generations are like, oh, okay, so I can say no. I can choose me. I don't have to follow the family, the family decision to go to this school or do this profession. And like they are going to be upset with me, and that's okay. It doesn't feel good, but it's okay if my family is not happy
Right.
with my decisions because ultimately they're mine. At some point, I get to go out here and decide a little bit of what they've taught me works, that doesn't work. And then I can go out here and have this experience and say, oh, that feels really, really good for me. I like that. I'm going to
Hmm.
keep that in my little arsenal. So that's how the ripple goes out. It starts to break the chains of Black women feeling A, that I have to choose everyone before I choose myself, which usually means you never get down to yourself unless you have some type of breakdown. And B, it's my birthright. And so many people benefit when I choose me. And everybody and people are so happy and I'm so happy. And it is possible to prolong this satisfaction. Like there isn't another shoe that's going to drop. Like it
Right.
gets to be this good all the time. And that's not to say that hiccups aren't going to happen and you're not
Right.
going to have bad days, but you can still, two things can exist. You can have a bad day and feel crappy and still look at the highlight of your life and still
Yes.
feel that satisfaction and that pleasure, right? Just because someone pissed me off in the house doesn't change the fact that I enjoy a lavender candle and it makes me feel good, or a
Right.
piece of pineapple that just takes me into another place when I'm eating it. They
Right.
still piss me off. It doesn't change that. But
Right.
I really like this too, and it makes me feel good.
Hmm. And that negative moment or adverse moment is an even smaller blip in the bigger scheme of
Mhm.
things. And I
Mhm.
feel like we're starting to see like women and especially Black women really start to embrace this. Like you're seeing all these women who are like forming groups and traveling, or
Yes.
like we're gonna go canoeing, or like all of
Mhm.
these neat things where honestly, as a child, some of the things that even I've done, people, Black people don't do that. No,
I
you can't do
know.
that.
I know.
And
I
you're
know.
seeing like nice, large groups of women trying these things and absolutely loving it. And
Mhm.
that brings me joy as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're exploring. That's at
Mhm.
the end of the day, that's what pleasure is about. It is about exploring and being curious about you before you're curious and exploring other people and other things.
Yes, absolutely. So, for women who are just starting this journey, what's one small actionable step they can take today to begin living and in alignment with their pleasure?
Whatever that thing is that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, do more of it and do more things that give you that warm and fuzzy feeling. That's that compound effect, right? Like just keep one thing after another. try to go 10 years from now, just after you're done listening to this, what's the fuzzy thing that you want to go do? Do you want to go eat? Do you want to call somebody? Do you want to go sit outside? Is there a book you've been meaning to get to? Like, go do the thing.
Yeah.
And then do the thing again and do the thing again. And that's all it is doing the thing.
Absolutely. And as little as buying the brightly colored textured pants and wearing
Yes.
them, for real.
Yes.
That
Like
happened
trade
to
out
me.
the black. Trade out the
Yes.
black and get some orange.
There was a pair of pants that I had been eyeing forever. And I was just like, these are really cute, but it's kind of out of the way. And then I was like, you know what? My body's covered. They are professional. I'm going to wear them. And I love those pants.
I know. And I'm sure like your whole being changes when you put those pants on. Can't nobody tell you nothing. Yes, I have some, I call them my rich auntie shoes, and they got like a gold buckle on them, and they're like pink mesh. I was like, y'all can't tell me nothing with these shoes on.
So, Natasha, for listeners who feel inspired by this conversation, what resources or next steps would you recommend for them to explore their pleasure journey?
So you can definitely go listen to my podcast, Owning Pleasure as a Black Woman. Any tiny steps that you would need, it is absolutely over there. And it, in my show notes, it tells you to join my newsletter or email me if you're needing support, because what I have found, and I know to be true, is you can want to do the things all day, but a lot of y'all have probably listened to a million podcasts and read a million books and gone and got your certifications and have done all the things, and you haven't taken any action. So my podcast, I make sure I add action steps so that you can like get off of the actual episode and go do the thing that you need to do to see some type of result.
And can you give us that name again?
Yes, it is Owning Pleasure as a Black Woman.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Natasha. Thank you for sharing your insights and helping us redefine pleasure in such an empowering way. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Zen'n'ish podcast. If today's conversation spoke to you, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review.
Zen'n'ish copyrighted podcast and website offer opinions of Dr. Lakeisha Hudson, Dr. Kiki Zen'n'ish LLC, and or guests. Content is for information only, not medical advice. Consult a professional for health concerns. Opinions are personal and do not reflect workplaces. Privacy is a priority. All names may be altered for confidentiality, not for legal use. No guarantee of accuracy. No doctor-patient relationship established. For errors, email 423.4.doctor.kiki@gmail.com.